Thanks, Mish, for joining me in one of the Future Social Service Institute blog series. I'm really pleased to introduce Mish to all of you. Mish is the Pro Vice-Chancellor of Vocational Education at RMIT since the end of last year, since November 2019. Mish began her career as a nurse and has since moving out of nursing has taken on leadership roles in education. She was in Tasmania, worked at the TAFE and the Polytechnic there, moved back to Melbourne to Swinburne prior to starting at RMIT. Mish is at the moment is a work from home mum, single mum with a 16-year-old son. So like many of us, juggling multiple roles and tasks at the moment.
Thanks. Micaela.
Thank you very much for taking the time. Okay, so Mish, from what I've seen and know of you and read of your work, I think it's reasonable to say that collaboration is a cornerstone of your leadership style. And many people are attributing taking a collaborative approach as one of the keys of success of some of the women leaders who are navigating their countries through the coronavirus crisis at the moment. I'm curious about how you manage bringing people along with you when they're operating in systems that don't necessarily encourage collaboration and cooperation.
Thanks, Micaela. Good question. And I agree, there's two components to that. So one I would say is an interesting observation about the gendered opportunity. I think that a model of collaboration with female leaders can bring to really creating outcomes that are unexpected and greater than the individual can be. So models around that premise of working as a cohesion and that no one part is more important than another probably stems from my background in emergency nursing, I've got to say, where if all the parts of the team weren't working well together, then the outcome was not good for the patient ultimately. So that frames some of my approaches and some of my thinking and how I work with people, and potentially require them to work outside what have been historical or normal boundaries. The premise of that is based on building a sense of where we're headed to start with. So what is it that we're trying to do, and getting back to those basic principles of what is our shaping force, what is our underlying passion, and what is great and good going to look like when we get there. So having those upfront conversations with the members of the team who I'm working with, and then their teams underneath as well, is really grounding it in a values and principles based approach about the work that we're trying to do and the difference that that work can make to people's lives. So in my sector, in education, it's about how the experience of learning and connecting with human beings can transform not only the work that they do, the qualifications they achieve, but the lives that they live and the ripple effects that they have on their communities. So that's some of the passion that kind of is innate within me and that I then share with my team and they with their teams around them. But there's a really interesting piece around system design and the fact that many organisations are structured to reward insular and siloed behaviours rather than to reward and recognise the greater good that can come down from breaking through those silos. So a practical kind of tactic that I often use is finding those moments where there are exemplars of that. What does that look like? Not because it just made the people involved feel great, so it made the teaching teams feel great, for example, but the impact on the students, the industry stakeholders and the communities was overwhelmingly good and is translated into something that is stuck, is scalable, is able to be replicated in a different context. And if you can find those moments of exemplar that are practical and that are real, it then inspires others around you, if you give them the license for that innovation, to then continue down that same track, to buck against what might have been historic and finding the opportunity to recognise and reward that, not necessarily with financial remuneration, but with recognition and authorising environment and celebration of the success along the way.
Absolutely. And Mish, all of that I have observed in the short time that you've been at RMIT, and I think it's incredibly valuable. So thank you for bringing that.
Thank you.
You talked, and I'm really curious, you talked about what you've brought with you into this role from your time in emergency nursing. You're a mum, you've been a student yourself, you've worked in the health sector. What do you bring from your life experience into your role as an educator?
I think there's a couple of really important components, and one's around humanity and understanding. So nothing magnifies that more than the COVID environment we're in, but really every person's world is different, and you don't know what is going on in their world outside of the work environment if you're only connected with them through work, unless you pause and start to make that human to human connection. So complexity and navigating study and work, whether that's shift work or office hours work, whatever it might be. And then all of those other layers that, and I've been involved in highly feminised workforces where all of the complexities then of being the primary caregiver to a range of different ages, whether it's children or older parents, also needing to be the family project manager, because that's traditionally what research shows us the females of the family do, has, I guess, added to my repertoire and experience of what I try to bring to an everyday understanding as we go forward. I mean, I do remember it would have been about 2014, so I'd shifted back from Tasmania to Melbourne. I had a son who was in grade 5 and grade 6, and I decided that was the time to also do my master's as well, because what else would you do? So I used to chunk out pieces of time, and I guess that's one of my other practical tips for people, is making sure you have those chunks of time which are your time to focus intensely, but then to break away from that. So I would often be at the kitchen table after he'd gone to bed at night. And when he was younger, he used to go to bed earlier, so that was easier. But then on weekends, it would be on a Saturday afternoon between, 1 and 4, I had to do focused work on the masters. And then on a Sunday, similar time. But it would be really important for me to be a balanced and connected mum and human being, and to get joy from all of the facets of life despite overfilling my dance card. So it was about, what did we do in the mornings? We'd go to the Oval with the footy and have a kick, or we'd go for a walk down to the park, or we'd be hanging together on the Flying Fox, whatever it might be, that then would mean that then I would come back, do my study. But he would also see that modelling about the fact that it's important to give attention to all the components of what you're doing and to be focused on particular things at particular points in time.
Mm-hmm. Mish, I did my master's at the kitchen table with 2 kids about the same age. So it does, and I know it really has shaped the way I think about leadership and my team, and how aware you are of that what you see is just the facade. There's a whole lot going on behind in everybody's lives.
Yeah.
So being a mum and an educator, and thinking about leading the transformation of vocational education now, as you said, is an incredibly challenging time for people thinking about, their life and what they're going to do with it. What would your advice be to people contemplating their future, particularly young people, but any student of any age?
My work has been peppered with a particular interest and passion around young people, and thinking about how we value and recognise what they already bring with them. So people who are finishing school or leaving school, or have left school and had a gap year, that type of thing, are often not regarded or valued for the repertoire of skills and expertise that they have. So I think there's the first bit about working out who you are, and don't be afraid to lean on others around you to help with that. And using a simple a simple sort of 3-question framework can help with that as well. So seeking feedback from some of your, if you've got part-time work, from your boss or your supervisor, as well as some of your teammates, about, in the work context or in life, what's something I should keep doing because I'm great at it? What's something I should start doing? And what's something I should maybe stop doing? So that keep doing, start, stop can really help validate for you about what some of your strength areas are. And the other, I guess, is a don't be afraid to say yes piece. So don't overthink it. When people offer you an opportunity, whether it's just come and have a look at this, come and do an internship, do you want to have a work placement? Do you want to experience and work alongside me for a couple of days? Say yes, because every step through my life journey has had different doors that have been slightly ajar. And if I didn't say yes, I couldn't have got through those doors. So you need to have an element of braveness to give it a go, because the worst that can happen is not so tragic with regard to work and study. There's other things that are far more tragic in life, but particularly with regard to education and opportunity, just say yes. If someone gives you a glimmer of an opportunity, give it a go. And then construct the learning and the experiences about what's doable for you.
Thanks, Mish. That's fabulous advice to start the day with. Just be brave and say yes when the door is slightly ajar. Love the image. Thank you very much for your time.
That's a pleasure. Thanks, Micaela.